Snetterton for rounds 9 and 10 of the GT Cup Championship. Day 2 here in Norfolk, with 2 races already under their belts. Here's a reminder of what happened yesterday with some highlights with Mark Werrell.
In the first race of the weekend, when the lights went out, it would be Richard Neary that would lead the charge up towards Richie's corner, whilst Richard Chamberlain muzzled his way through and ahead of John Seal up into second place at the wheel of the Porsche. Everybody else was busy squabbling for positions down through this enormous 36-car field. There was contact coming out of Agostini, which caused damage to the front end of the Fox Motorsport car of James Townsend. He would limp the Ginetta back to the pit lane for repairs. John Dillon also suffered his first misfortune of the 2021 season with a front left puncture on the Lamborghini. The Scott Sport crew would go to work changing the tyre on his car, but it would drop him down through the order and off the lead lap. And Mark Hopton had problems as the bonnet flew up on his Greystone McLaren. Having taken second place away from John Seal at the start, Richard Chamberlain found himself back under pressure for that position from the very same car. However, the safety car came out because of a problem on circuit. That was cleared away, and the race was about to get underway with Richard Neary once more looking to try and make good his escape in the lead of the race, while the battles behind continued. John Seal's Lamborghini was coming under pressure from Lucky Kira's example, both of them looking identical, but they do run different groups. And elsewhere down through the order, the Marcos of Andy Roby was coming under pressure from Fraser Smart's Lamborghini. Closing stages of the race, John Seal's Lamborghini would find himself under pressure from the Nissan of Graham Tilley. Graham Tilley snuck up the inside at Richie's, taking the place away, and the lapped car of John Dillon would go through as well. Despite being a lap adrift, the number 61 car in the hands of John Dillon would keep pushing the Nissan towards the checkered flag. Richard Neary would claim another win in the Mercedes AMG for Team ABBA Racing. It would be Lucky Kira finishing in second place, but the fight between Graham Tilley and the lapped car of John Dillon would continue until the checkered flag came out. And as for the former England cricket captain making a one-off appearance in the GT Cup, Freddie Flintoff would see the checkered flag and gain a signature on his racing licence in his first ever race. In the second race of the weekend, it would be Richard Chamberlain that would lead the charge up towards Richie's corner, with Richard Neary slotting in into second position. A great start from Steve Burgess, however, at the wheel of the Radical would come undone to a degree as there was contact between John Dillon and John Seal at the Wilson hairpin. The Radical and several other cars all having to take to the grass in avoidance. There was a great battle early on for the lead of Group GTB between the two identical Porsches, Richard Marsh just holding off the aspirations of Nick Phelps, whilst the delayed Radical of Steve Burgess was continuing to make progress up through the field. In the hands of Paul Bailey, the unique Brabham BT62 was also starting to carve its way up towards the sharp end of the field. He would hand the car over later in the race to the Scotsman Ross Wiley. At the sharp end of the order, Richard Chamberlain was coming under huge pressure from the Scott Sport Lamborghini of John Dillon. The door was almost open as they went through the bomb hole. Richard Chamberlain just managing to close it in time to hang on to the place. However, later on in the race, there'd be problems for Richard Chamberlain and the Porsche, and those problems would put them out for the rest of the weekend. Freddie Flintoff would be continuing to make progress in the race, lap after lap after lap, his lap times getting quicker in his first ever racing weekend. For the lead of Group GTA, there was a titanic battle as Simon Orange was continually trying to fight off Stephen Walton for the lead. As the pit window opened, Richard Neary was first in, having built up a substantive lead. He would hand the car over to his son, Sam Neary, for part two. And Richard Marsh from the lead of Group GTB would be in also to hand over to Sam Randon. For Freddie Flintoff, his driving was done for the day, and he would hand over the number 10 Ginetta to fellow Top Gear presenter Chris Harris. The Brabham, in the meantime, had been handed over by Paul Bailey to Ross Wiley, and the Scotsman, the former British GT champion, was setting fastest lap after fastest lap and making progress through the field. However, for Chris Harris, his time behind the wheel of the Ginetta did not last long. Problems with the car spelt retirement at Palmer's. The battle for the lead of Group GTA was still on, even after the pit stops. Chris Hart had taken over the Make It Happen Ginetta and was still under pressure from Simon Orange, who eventually squeezed his way through on the way out of Agostini and on the run up in towards Hamilton. For Sam Neary, though, it looked as though it was going to be victory for him and his father in Team ABBA Racing yet again. Their 6th overall win of the 2021 season in the GT Cup Championship. With the easing of restrictions, it was great to finally get an official trophy presentation done. Some very happy drivers receiving their trophies. And a special award also for the driver of the day would go the way of Freddie Flintoff.
Well, no Freddie Flintoff here today, but we do have a very exciting addition to the grid. It's behind me here, this beauty. You heard Mark mention it actually in the highlights. The Brabham, the number 28, Paul Bailey and Ross Wiley behind the wheel. Absolutely gorgeous car in that racing green. Of course, Brabham is a name synonymous with motor racing. And earlier on, I caught up with David Brabham and also driver Paul Bailey. Paul Bailey, you have just done your qualifying. How did it go?
Absolutely amazing. We've only put a new engine in the car and I haven't had a chance to test it at all. I think Friday was only the 5th time I've ever got in the car. So it was tough. I was a long way off where I needed to be. In the first race, I gained 7 seconds. In the second race, another 4. And I've just gained another 2.5. So I've gone from P11 to P4.
Wow.
Which is just fantastic, and we'll just see how the race goes. But the SB Race Engineering have just done an amazing job getting the car ready, and now I'm in a position where I've just got to learn how to drive it really and lean on the aero and all the other things I have to learn with the new car, but it's going well so far.
Congratulations, that's a brilliant result. It's obviously warming up already here, even though it's still early at the time of speaking to you. So how was it in the car, you know?
The car was very, very hot indeed. I think everyone's car is hot. I do have a race car with aircon and it makes hardly any difference. But when you're focusing on the race, you don't tend to notice how hot it is. It's if you're perhaps on your own and there's a big gap to someone in front and a big gap to someone behind, and you're going around but you're not having to push super hard, then you suddenly feel really hot. But when you're pushing and you're concentrating, you notice it when you get out of the car.
So just for those people that aren't familiar with you, tell us a little bit about yourself and sort of your history with motor racing and cars, because I know you've got quite an impressive collection.
Yeah, we got a massive collection of road cars. I bought a Ferrari and they gave me a chance to have a go in one of their race cars, and I absolutely loved it. So for 2 or 3 years, I just went to track days and things like that. I was taught to race with Club Fiorano, which was a Ferrari factory event. And then in the first year, I raced a 430 Ferrari in a brand new class. And at the end of the year, we went to the awards ceremony and they said that the winner is Paul Bailey. And I stood up and clapped and laughed and said, "Very funny, guys." And they said, "No, you've won." I said, "But I haven't won a race." And they said, "The reason why you've won is you've finished every race." And it was that moment that I absolutely understood that in order to win, you must finish. And so from there, I've raced Aston Martin, I've raced 4 different models of Ferrari, I've raced McLaren, and of course now the Brabham. This is year 10 for me, and I've won 8 class championships, so I've been very lucky indeed.
And how are you finding the Brabham? Because obviously it's a return to racing from them.
It's a better car than I am a driver, that's for sure. Ross, who's the factory driver and my partner in this championship, is just amazingly fast. Even with the new time I've done, he's 5 seconds a lap quicker than me. Amazing, that's an eternity. But I'm getting there. You know, I'll be even quicker next round, and that's how it's got to be.
David, we've just spoken to Paul, who had a great qualifying session just now.
Yeah, no, he did a fantastic job. You know, it's still a fairly new car for him, and the performance of the vehicle is a lot more than what the Ferrari was. So we're sort of coaching him through it. He's taking it to a duck to water because he just keeps getting better and better. And obviously yesterday's result was fantastic as well. You know, to be on the podium and then have a win, fantastic result for the whole team.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously this is your first weekend here with GT Cup. I wanted to talk about Brabham because it's synonymous with motor racing. It's got such a rich heritage. When did Brabham stop making cars? Was it something like the 70s? It was a long time ago, wasn't it?
Well, my father and Ron Turanak created Brabham in 1962. And by the time they got to 65, 66, they were the biggest racing car manufacturer in the world. So in the 60s up to about end of 1970, they built over 500 cars.
Wow.
So the Formula One team continued. The mass production stopped, so it was just the Formula One team. So I drove for Brabham in Formula One, and I drove the BT 59. And it folded a couple of years later. And so the last car to race was a BT 60B. And the 61 was drawn, but it never got built. So when we created this one with Brabham Automotive and the BT62, we just followed on to the BT62 number, which coincides with the fact as 1962 is when it all started as well. So
how fantastic!
Yeah.
So amazing to after so long to then come back. And what was the reason for starting to build cars again?
Well, I mean, you know, I was a professional driver for 35 years, and I was about 40, thinking about the future really. Because I thought we got this iconic racing name. Well, I thought we did. I ended up in a 7-year legal battle to get the name back. But once I got it back, it was about trying to do something with it, and trying to find the right partners, turn the name, the iconic name, into a brand, and have brand activations that did it justice. The first one is Brabham Automotive with my partners in Australia, Fusion Capital. And we produced the BT62 as a kind of halo project for us to say, hey, here we are. We're back again from a brand's point of view. And, you know, it's fantastic to see the first customer of the BT62 competition spec go straight out and be on the podium and win and fastest lap. So I think it just shows, you know, how good the car is. And obviously it's not like a fully homologated GT3 car, but there are championships that allow the vehicle to operate. GT Cup is one of them, and it's a great championship. I mean, you just have to look at the field here as well as the diversity of vehicles and drivers. It's exciting.
Well, amazing stories behind both the Brabham name and that particular car, and great to catch up with Paul Bailey, a multiple former champion in the GT Cup Championship, and David Brabham as well. And what a beautiful looking car it is. What a wonderful sounding car it is, with a 5.4 litre V8 Ford-based engine in there, capable of producing 700 brake horsepower. But of course, as with all of the groups in the GT Cup, that car being in Group GTO, we do have a balance of performance in reality. The Butte Motorsport technical team working to try and equalise the performance of the cars in each one of the 6 groups that we have, and therefore that Brabham is not running at 100% throttle. They have brought it back from there just to make sure that it is on a par with the rest of the cars in Group GTO. Well, we are blessed with perfect conditions again here at Snetterton. You can see the heat haze as we look down the big, long Bentley straight. We are running on the full 300 circuit as well, so that's the full Snetterton configuration. It's just under 3 miles, so it's 2.9689 miles. And what a couple of races we had yesterday, as you saw from the highlights, and we will repeat that today. So what's coming up now is the sprint race, a 25-minute sprint race with no pit stops to worry about. So the drivers that start the race will be the drivers that finish the race as well. And I think we've just had the final confirmation on one of the drivers as to who is starting. So the cars will be making their way out onto the grid, and look forward to seeing as to who might be fighting away. We've had a range of different group winners as well. We had new cars head to the podium in their respective groups for the first time yesterday. We had brand new group winners as well, cars that had not stood on the top step of the podium in their respective groups. So whilst some cars have dominated, others it has been mixed up, and I would say largely Group GTH this year. It was a category that was introduced a couple of seasons ago by Butte Motorsport. Group GTH caters for GT4 specification cars, so in other words cars that would be equivalent to those that you might see racing in the British GT Championship or maybe the European GT4 Championship as well. So cars that are eligible for GTH are all that kind of specification car, and we've seen that category grow and grow and grow over the course of the last season or so since it was introduced, and it is the most popular category, the most popular group, and it saw a different winner yesterday. The Paddock Motorsports team, which is Martin Plowman and Kelvin Fletcher, who set up that team over the course of the winter. We saw a win for them for the first time yesterday, which was fantastic to see. So the cars heading out onto the grid. This is round 9 of the championship that is coming up. There goes Chris Murphy, a former champion, in his black Aston Martin through shots. That is Charlotte Gilbert for Top Cats Racing in one of 2 Marcos Mantis cars that we have in the field. The Marcos Mantis is a car that harks back to the One Make Race series that we had for them back in the 1990s, and still competitive in the group that they sit. Just to guide you through the groups and I'll tell you a little bit about them. So Group GT3 is for GT3 homologated cars. So cars that race in this are full GT3 specification cars, as homologated globally in reality. If you have a GT3 car, not only can you race it in the UK and Europe, you can bring it over to Asia to race it, over to America to race it. The homologation is pretty much a worldwide homologation for GT3 cars. Group GTO, like the Brabham, it's for open specification, low volume built cars as well, that can also encompass GT2 cars and GTE cars as well. Group GTC is for later model challenge and cup specification cars, so where balancing performance is required. So it might be that a European Ferrari specification car comes in and races against what is largely Lamborghini Super Trofeo cars that sit in there. Both of those cars tend to sit in Group GTC. It's all Lamborghinis this weekend, but again we have to balance the performance of the Ferrari against the Lamborghini in that particular category or group. Group GTB is for earlier challenge and cup cars, so that is at the front of that we'll see the Porsche 911s seem to have dominated Group GTB, but that also includes the likes of the 2 Marcos Mantis cars in GTB. Group GTH I spoke about, that was for the GT4 cars, and Group GTA is for lower specification cup and challenge cars and One Make Series cars, which is largely for Ginetta Super Cup cars we see over the course of this weekend. So cars making their way down onto the grid, and I think Michelle is probably there as we build up to our first sprint race of the day.
Yes. Hello, yes Mark, I'm here, I'm on the grid for the first of today's races and the cars are coming through. What an impressive grid, eh? You've got to love the GT Cup Championship for that. The grid is just superb. Still waiting for the Brabham to come through and take that P4, that pole 4 position 4 rather, not pole 4, what am I talking about, eh? But we have got our pole position car coming through shortly as well. So hopefully we'll be able to get racing in probably a couple of minutes' time. We'll see if I can have a little chat to somebody. I've actually got... Hello.
Hello, darling.
How are you? There.
We can't get through there.
We've got a bit of a problem. Richard Neary here. Obviously, the Nearys are on pole position, but of course they can't get their car through at the moment. So there's going to have to be a little bit of shunting around, actually. I'm going to get out the way while that happens. There we go. There's our number 28. Paul Bailey behind the wheel for the sprint race. Of course, it'll be Ross Wiley joining him when we get to the pit stop race a little bit later on. Here we go, backing the cars up. Now, our first row cars can come through. We've got the number 61, and right behind our pole position, number 88. Richard and Sam Neary, who had an incredible day yesterday. They were on top form and, of course, a great qualifier as well. John Dillon sitting behind the wheel there as well. So, let's have a look. I don't know if, actually, I was going to have a chat with him, but he's... I don't know, should we oh, he's opened the door. That's convenient. Go. I'll let you get into position and then I will. Quick chat. There we go. Sam, I'm just going to jump in. How you doing?
Yeah, not bad. Not bad. Looking forward to the race. Hopefully we can get a good start and then pull out a gap from there.
Yeah, you had a really good day yesterday, didn't you?
Yeah, no, Richard sort of won me the race yesterday. He did really well. I just had to sort of bring it home. I've got to do my bit now, and hopefully we can get another win.
Great conditions at the moment, so have a good one. Shall I shut the door for you? Oh, yes? There we go, he's in, he's ready. Fantastic. Well, listen, I'm going to hand you back to Mark because obviously it's a massive grid, so we need to get through all the cars and let you know what's happening. And I've got to get off the grid. So Mark Werrell for race 1 today. It's over to you.
Thanks, Michelle. Yeah, good to catch up with Sam Neary, and good that we got the parking issue sorted out there on the grid. This is the sprint race, so Michelle was alluding to the fact that Paul Bailey and John Dillon were in their cars and they'd be taken over and other drivers would be in later on in the day. That is because this is a sprint race. It's only the AM drivers, or the sporting drivers as they referred to, that can participate in this sprint race. So if in the regulations you are deemed as being a professional driver, you are not eligible to be in this race. So the pros only can come in for the pit stop races. But changes to the regulations for this year also bring in a third category. So we've got the sporting drivers and we've got the pro drivers, but we've also got sporting pro for this year. And Sam Neary is one of those sporting pro drivers who starts that car on pole position. Now, the sporting pro driver can only do one of the 2 sprint races over the weekend and can also only start in one of the 2 pit stop races. So it's changes to the regulations for this year that has 3 categories, because while Sam is a very quick driver and a BRDC Rising Star, he was recently announced as, he sprays truck chassis as a living. He is not a professional driver, but he's also not quite as maybe inexperienced as some of the sporting drivers. So he slots into that additional categorisation that's brought in for this year. So the cars will very shortly head off on their formation lap. You can just see the last few team members clearing the grid, and then we'll guide you through the grid and tell you which drivers are behind the wheel for this race, because in the case of some of the cars, of course, it is sporting driver that shares with sporting driver, so the team have to identify as to which one of their 2 eligible drivers would actually take part in this race. There are separate bulletins that are issued for it. It is a 25-minute race that is coming up. We've got the 3 separate groups that we will have titanic battles all the way through. We have lost just 1 car since yesterday, which was Richard Chamberlain, so we still have got 35 cars on the grid for this one as they head off on their final formation lap. So let's guide you through the grid for this first sprint race of the day, round 9 of the championship, as they head off on their formation lap. It is Sam Neary that is going to start from pole position, and alongside will be the car of John Dillon. Row 2 of the grid will be John Seal and the leading Group GTO car in the hands of Paul Bailey. Row 3 on the grid, that is where we should see Lucky Kira at the wheel of car number 247 that sits there on row number 3. Just waiting for the graphic to come up and confirm Lucky Kira, and alongside is Graham Tilley. And row number 4 will be started by Steve Burgess, and alongside is Mike Brown. The 5th row of the grid, that's where we will see the car of Chris Kemp, and it will be Warren Gilbert that sits alongside Richard Marsh and James Simons sitting there on row number 6. Row 7 of the grid, it's Nick Phelps who sits there on row number 7, and alongside him will be the car of James Hillary. And with row 8 of the grid, it will be Stephen Walton in this race alongside Simon Orange. Row 9 of the grid, Mike Price will line up alongside Josh Jackson, and row 10 will see Tom Rawlings and Morgan Tilbrook. Onto the 11th row of the grid, and it should be David Holloway that will start that car, with John Whitehouse scheduled to start alongside. Steve Russon shares that car, but it will be John Whitehouse in this race. And row number 12, it will be Seb Melrose who takes over the number 10 car for today alongside Carl Cavers. The 13th row of the grid is going to be the car of car number 118, which will be James Townsend alongside Chris Murphy. Mark Hopton and Andy Roby sit there on row number 14, with row 15 being comprised on the inside by the 92 car of Rob Myers, and alongside is Alex Stevenson. The next row of the grid will be Ian Campbell and James Guess, who's feeling a little bit under the weather with a stomach upset this morning, so that's why he's qualified relatively out of position. And then we see Craig Wilkins in a separate car for today. His car had engine problems yesterday. They've hired a new car for today alongside Russ Lindsay, and Charlotte Gilbert will start at the tail end of the field. So that's the drivers that will be starting this race and bringing it towards the checkered flag. As we say, we don't have the driver changes that we will see later on today in the pit stop race. So final bit of weaving being done from side to side, trying to build all of that little temperature that they need to do into the Control Pirelli slick tyres that they are all run. They're restricted to 3 sets of slick tyres per day. So those 3 sets have to see them through practice, through qualifying, through the sprint race, and through the pit stop race as well, and all of that is to keep the budgets down. They all are also running exactly the same fuel as well, so they run the Sunoco race fuel, which is supplied by the Anglo-American Oil Company, who are the official fuel supplier to the GT Cup Championship. So Sam Neary, the black and green Mercedes, sitting there on pole position. It's the largely blue and white and day-glow green Lamborghini Huracan from Scott Sport in the hands of John Dillon alongside. Row 2 of the grid is that largely white and blue Lamborghini from JMH Automotive of John Seal, and alongside is the green and gold Brabham. So we're about to get things underway for the first time today. Round 9 of the 2021 GT Cup Championship is go here at Snetterton. The lights go out. Sam Neary already gets the nose of the Mercedes into the lead of the race, whilst Paul Bailey slots himself through from 4th on the grid up to 2nd. A great start for the car, and that puts him into the lead of Group GTO in the early stages, but the rest of the field all filing their way through Ritchie's corner. Mercedes leads Brabham. It is then the horde of Lamborghinis that sit there in 3rd, 4th and 5th position. The Group GTA and Group GTH and Group GTB cars all just filing their way out of the Wilson hairpin, but Dillon's there in 3rd place, Lucky Keir in 4th, John Seal in 5th, it's Graham Tilley in 6th position. Little bit of smoke that we see is actually cement dust that's been put down by the marshals following an engine issue for one of the cars in the support races over the course of this weekend. But everybody is treading gingerly in the early stages. It's a bit of a bottleneck at the Agostini hairpin there, but everybody is just driving with a good element of caution in the early stages. Great start from that Brabham, wasn't it? Sounds absolutely glorious. He's up into 2nd place, but he's got a trio of Lamborghinis queuing up behind. Then the Nissan of Graham Tilley, followed by the Black Radical RXC, which I'm really pleased to see is out. I spoke to Steve Burgess last night, and they did think they'd damaged the engine on that car and therefore wouldn't be out today, but great work by Raw Motorsports. Rob Weldon's team have made sure that that Radical RXC is out there, and car number 7 is rather conveniently running in 7th place in the early stages. Sam Neary starting to break away in the lead of the race. The V8 engined Brabham sitting there ahead of John Dillon's Lamborghini. Lucky Keira's not too far behind either at the wheel of his largely black Lamborghini. All of those cars do run to GT3 specification, so the blue one and the black one. The white one behind is John Seal, who is running to a slightly different spec. His car runs to Group GTO specification. Now, Lucky Keira gets a better run coming out of the corner. That is problems in the early stages for Stephen Walton, who's had a spin in the Make It Happen Ginetta. That claimed a group win yesterday. It's 1st of the season. At the end of lap number 1, 5 seconds is the gap, 1st to 2nd. Sam Neary is out of the box rather quickly, isn't it? And he's looking to pull away. Problems for Alex Stevenson. He's facing the wrong way. Might have got tangled up with Andy Roby's car. That looked as though that was at Murray's, the final corner, at the end of the first lap. Let's hope they get going. Otherwise, with stricken cars in the circuit, I think I know what the inevitable would have to be if they can't get themselves going once more. It would have to be a safety car, surely. Oh, Radical's out. Such a shame. Steve Burgess is out now. Looks as though he might have had a problem off the circuit. As for Alex Stevenson, there's damage to the left-hand side of that car. His Ginetta recovering back onto the track. But all of the time, Sam Neary is pulling away. I mean, Rob Weldon's team must have worked on that Radical until very late in the morning. The early hours, I would have thought. But now, I don't think that's Steve Burgess having gone off the track that far. I think it's him trying to get the car out of harm's way with some sort of mechanical woe. For Paul Bailey, though, in 2nd place, there's no let-up in the pressure. John Dillon misses his apex, heading round through Williams, who's going to lose out here. His pocket is picked instantly by Lucky Keira. So Lucky goes through, the man from the West Midlands, and takes up what will be 3rd position from the blue Lamborghini. John Dillon also has got the car of John Seal not that far behind. John Seal running in a separate group to the 2 Lambos ahead of him. Graham Tilley not too far away at the wheel of Godzilla, as it's known. The Nissan, the GTR, the Nismo GT3, one of Bob Neville built cars that would have been competed in both the domestic British GT Championship and throughout Europe as well. But the fight is still on for second place. Lucky Kira is looking to try and gain another place here. He's up the inside of Paul Bailey. He's going to go through and into second place. Bailey is put offline a little bit, and therefore John Dillon might be able to squeeze his way through in a straight line. The Brabham is quick though, so I think Paul Bailey will pull away. He's going to attack back as well, having lost the place, rockets his way past and retakes the lead again. Retakes the lead of that pack again. Back up into second place he will go. So all of this squabbling behind is playing beautifully into the hands of Sam Neary, who is now 10 seconds up the road at the end of just 2 laps of racing. Bailey runs a little bit wide though at the Wilson hairpin, which allows Lucky Kira to come back at him. Now is Lucky Kira going to try and brave it round the outside at Palmer? He is, you know. John Dillon has gone off in the background from 3rd position, so Lucky Kira gains the place. Paul Bailey back down into 3rd position for the moment. What of John Dillon? No, he is off at Palmer, I'm afraid. So the number 61 car is having further problems today. I mentioned yesterday that John Dillon had been hugely consistent so far this year. Well, he had a puncture, as we saw on the highlights, in one of the races and didn't quite get the finish. Well, he's had more problems again today as well, John Dillon, and he's now going to drop his way down through the order. So Sam Neary leads. Lucky Kira will be up into 2nd place now. Paul Bailey's Brabham, the BT62, down into 3rd position. John Seal will be up into 4th, following the problems for John Dillon. Graham Tilley will also move up through the order, and I think it will also mean now inside the top 6 is the championship leading car at the moment, the Group GTC Lamborghini, that's in the hands of Warren Gilbert for this race. So out of Brundle and Nelson. There goes John Seal. Here's our race leader. 10.7 seconds almost was the gap between the ABBA Racing Mercedes and the best of the rest. Into the pit lane, I'm afraid to say, comes Alex Stevenson. So a bit of bodywork being ripped away by the Century Motorsport team from the Ginetta G55. But that is not what Alex Stevenson really wanted. So 3 laps now completed. In a straight line, the Brabham pulls away from John Seal's number 55 Lamborghini, but John is under attack at the moment for what is 4th position. Graham Tilley is not that far behind at all. Is Tilley going to have a little nibble? No, he's too far away as they head in towards the braking area for the Wilson hairpin. So we'll try and take as wide a sweep in as he can at the wheel of the Nissan. There is the car that leads the championship overall at the moment, and is the leading Group GTC car we have in the field. That is the Top Cats Racing Lamborghini. That's Warren Gilbert for this race. So we might have lots of Lamborghini Huracans, but they are spread across 3 different groups. We've got the GT3 spec cars, we've got John Seals, which is a GTO spec car, and this is a GTC specification car. So this is running to Lamborghini's Super Trofeo specification as good as. And it might be a brand new car to the team and the drivers, but they have been absolutely mega so far this season, picking up group wins. I wouldn't say effortlessly, but they've picked up some pretty significant group wins, and even with problems yesterday when that number 9 car finished 27th overall, because other cars in the group had problems, they still won the group and picked up maximum championship points. Now the repairs to the Century Motorsport Ginetta still going on. You can see a damage to the side of it. 2 Group GTB Porsches have got themselves together. That's the number 34 car of Richard Marsh fighting away with David Frankland. That's not for the lead of the group at this stage. That is going to be for 2nd in the group, because it looks as though Nick Phelps has got away from them. So that's for 2nd and 3rd in Group GTB. There is Nick Phelps. So here's the leading Group GTB car, the blue and white and pink Porsche heading towards us, and then the next 2 Porsches are fighting over 2nd and 3rd in the group. James Hillary trying to sweep his way around the outside of Richard Marsh, heading in towards Brundle and Nelson. Could almost make it stick, I think, there. John Dillon, following his grassy excursion at Palmer, is now threading his way back up through the order. He dropped down outside of the top 20. He was 22nd as he came over the start-finish line last time through. Was in 4th position, wasn't he, before the problem? So the Lamborghini should be able to pick off fairly easily the Group GTH cars. But the problem is, of course, he's going to be losing time whilst he just waits for the opportunity to get through, and he can't get past Carl Cavers at the wheel of the Beluga Motorsport Cayman on the way in towards Murray's. He'll have to wait until the exit of it, and then he can power past it in a straight line. So that's one of the GTH cars ticked off. The next one he'll get through and past will be Morgan Tilbrook's Mercedes. Now, there goes the number 26 car. That is, in this race, in the hands of Tom Rawlings. That's the car that claimed its first group win yesterday. Tom Rawlings was sharing the car with Mo Ritson. Well done to them and the Paddock Motorsport team. New team to the championship for this season. The number 26 car is trying to hold off the Team Orange Ginetta that sits behind, and that will be Simon Orange. Simon Orange is leading Group GTA at this stage, so it's the Group GTH leading McLaren, heading the Group GTA leading Ginetta at this stage. So could Paddock Motorsport be on for back-to-back group wins? We'll have to find out in the next 16 minutes or so. The good thing for Tom Rawlings in that McLaren is that at the moment he's got a Group GTA car between himself and the next of the cars in Group GTH, which is that car there, Mike Price's Balfe Motorsport prepared McLaren. And that's exactly what he wants to do. He'll want to keep that Ginetta between himself and his rivals in the group. Now the fight is still on for 3rd, 4th and 5th place. Paul Bailey under attack from John Seal, whilst John is under attack from Graham Tilley sitting behind. Brabham from Lamborghini from Nissan. 15.5 minutes to go. And well, lap 6 about to be completed, or lap 6 is where our race leader is on at the moment. So this is lap 5 that these guys are about to complete now as they head over the start-finish line. We should get to something like 12 laps, I would have thought, if we go green all of the way. That was what we managed yesterday in what was a fairly uninterrupted race with regards to any safety cars. So they turn their way through the right-hander at Ritchie's corner and towards the braking area for Wilson. Corner named after the late, great Justin Wilson, who was a driver that received huge support in his early days of his career from Jonathan Palmer, the man who owns and operates the MSV circuits, of which Snetterton is one of them. Corner named in his memory. They charge their way down towards Agostini. Now, I don't think the Brabham is quite as good through the corners, maybe, but certainly down the straight is where the Group GTO car seems to have the advantage over those around. Now there goes our Group GTH leader. That's the leading GT4 car, the number 26 car. The leading Group GTA car for the lower spec Cup and Challenge cars, One Make Series cars, sits behind the orange Ginetta of Simon Orange. So that's a car that runs to Ginetta's Super Cup specification. The best of the fights is probably for 2nd and 3rd in Group GTH, which is the number 90 car of Mike Price, coming under pressure from the orange McLaren in the hands of Josh Jackson. And then right behind them is Morgan Tilbrook in the Mercedes, who's also running in Group GTH, and also Carl Cavers. So what we've got there is 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th in Group GTH altogether. The 2 McLarens, the Merc, and then that number 50 Porsche. On towards the brakes, in towards the right-hander at Oggies. Try and carry as much speed through this corner as you can, which is Murray's, because you get, which is Williams. You get clean off that corner. You carry all of that momentum all the way down the straight. Now, side by side, John Seal has almost unlocked the door there to work his way through into the overall podium places, and this is important because it's for the lead of the group as well. 2 Group GTO cars absolutely together. The GT3 spec Nissan sitting behind, but for the Brabham and the white Lamborghini, that is for the lead of their group and championship points to try and work out as to who's going to be on the top step of the podium. Graham Tilley works his way past one or either of them. It actually doesn't affect the championship points that either Brabham or Lamborghini would score, but it's the battle between Brabham and Lamborghini that will affect what their individual championship scores are. 25 points if you win your group, 18 if you're second. That's the difference. But Graham Tilley sits 5th in the race overall, 3rd in Group GT3. And knowing Graham, he'll want to do as well as he can, but he'll also be conscious that he's fighting with cars that aren't in his group, and the last thing he'll want to do is try a move to get past them and trip over them and cause problems either for himself or his fellow competitors. So he'll want to keep it clean. John Seal just raising the dust as he turned his way through the very quick left-hander at Hamilton. On towards the Brabham straight, they will go once more, and this is where we'll see as to who has the advantage in a straight line. Is it the Lamborghini of John Seal? Is it the Brabham? I suspect it will be, of Paul Bailey. Now remember, the Brabham isn't running at full throttle as well. They've tried to peg back the performance of that Brabham so that it is equalised with the Lamborghini. And well, hats off to the Butte Motorsport technical team, because as you can see, both cars evenly matched over the course of a full lap. Now one might have a small advantage either through the corners or down the straight, but over the course of the lap, nothing to choose between the performance of the Brabham and the Lamborghini, and well, just goes to show that the way they have equalised the performance of these cars is working at the moment. I think there's a little wiggle there from John Seal midway through Coram. Didn't affect his time though, because he's still within a car length or so of Paul Bailey. Towards the braking area for Agostini, that's the number 212 car, trying to make progress again. Now, we saw a spin, didn't we, earlier on for Stephen Walton. He's just threaded his way past one of the Team Orange cars there and has gained position. That's the car that is now behind him, the number 17 car, which for this race will be Russ Lindsay that's behind the wheel, and both of them need to watch their mirrors now as well, because Sam Neary, the race leader, is beginning to close in and wanting to work his way through and past. Plenty of time, though, for Sam to just decide when he's going to work his way through and past the back markers, because he has built up almost a 27-second lead now, as you can see. 27.5 seconds is the lead advantage. He might have lost a little bit of that through the traffic, but he'll be straight back on it again once more. Driver who also races in the British GT Championship. We've still got James Hillary and Richard Marsh fighting away as well. That's a good little fight. They're bottled up behind James Simon's Group GTC Lamborghini, the pair of Group GTB Porsches. And those Porsches are still fighting for second and third in the class. We've also had a shuffle in the order there by the look of things. We've still got the fight also going on for second, third, fourth and fifth in Group GTH for the GT4 spec cars. Mike Price under pressure from Josh Jackson, Morgan Tilbrook in the Mercedes, and Carl Cavers all together as well. But for the moment, it is just Mike Price that is hanging on to it. Mike, who raced in the Porsche Sprint Challenge back in 2020. He's had 3 Club Enduro wins at Spa in the past as well, with Callum McLeod, who he shares the car with come the pit stop race later on. Raced in the Porsche Club Series as well for a few years, so he's at the front of this quartet of cars. The reigning champion Josh Jackson sitting behind him, and well, the fairly newcomer to motorsport Morgan Tilbrook is looking to try and attack in the Mercedes if the two McLarens trip over each other. Morgan, who is in for the full season this season, did some fun cup racing back in 2019 and 2020, Morgan. It's great to see him in for the full season, and with a very quick pro as well that will share the car with him in the race later on today, which is going to be Marcus Clutton, another former British GT champion. We've got a few of those in the field over the course of this weekend. Here come the hordes of cars still fighting away down through the order. That's going to be the Aston Martin just heading through there, and you can see that before long it's going to get very, very busy for our race leader there, because Sam Neary was catching up on that gaggle of cars. Now, Paul Bailey has had a busy old race here, not just to try and keep himself on the overall podium, but to try and grab the group win. John Seal is not going away. He might have dropped back an extra couple of cars' lengths at the wheel of the Lamborghini, but with 8.5 minutes to go, he's still more than within touching distance. Should Paul Bailey have any sort of issue at all at the wheel of the Brabham, any small mistake, a snatch brake, not quite hitting an apex, hesitance through a back marker, anything like that, and John Seal will be absolutely back on the boot lid of him. Now, this is about the only car that hasn't got somebody to fight with at the moment. Lucky Kira is, what, 30 seconds adrift of the race leader, but has about 8 or 9 seconds in hand between himself and Paul Bailey's Brabham that sits behind. So it's a lonely aspect of the race, really, for Lucky Kira at this stage. Back towards the leading cars in Group GTA and Group GTH. Well, I saw earlier on that the Ginetta of Simon Orange had got through and past Tom Rawlings' McLaren. Well, what the number 26 car can't now afford to do is fall into the clutches of the next 4 cars that are not that far behind, because they're... Oh, off has gone John Seal. That looks as though that might be at Murray's where he's had the off. It certainly looks as though it's the exit of Murray's. We've now got Mike Price under pressure for second place in Group GTH as Josh Jackson tries to pull a move on him. This will certainly help Tom Rawlings at the wheel of that number 26 McLaren, because now they're squabbling behind. So the McLaren, and into the pit lane comes Paul Bailey as well from the lead of Group GTO. Oh, that is such a shame for the Brabham. He tried so hard to try and keep John Seal behind. Now, both of those in at the same time begs the question. Didn't see any contact on the live stream, of course, but they were at the same part of the circuit. They were both squabbling for the final podium spot, and of course the lead of Group GTO, and they both have issues on the same lap. Read into that as you will, but I strongly suspect that something has happened. Yeah, you can see broken windscreen on the Brabham, the mechanics inspecting the front left of it, and I suspect there's been some sort of contact between the pair of them, and that is going to, I'm afraid, potentially put both of them out of the race. What it has done is move Graham Tilley now in the Nissan up into 3rd position overall. As for the progress of the Make It Happen Racing Ginetta in the hands of Stephen Walton. Well, he had his off, he had his spin, and is still only up into 30th position. So you could almost imagine the frustration of Paul Bailey. Damage to the front left corner of his car. He is out of the race. As for John Seal, we saw him limp into the pit lane as well, and his car has not as yet come back out of the pit lane, so that is highly likely to be retirement for him as well. Now, are we seeing Mike Price, Josh Jackson and Morgan Tilbrook closing up on Tom Rawlings? I think we are, you know. Let's have a quick look. Yeah, last lap time from Tom Rawlings, 2 minutes 2.4. Despite the fact they're all squabbling behind, the green McLaren, the orange McLaren and the orange and black and white Mercedes are lapping quicker than the car that leads the group at the moment, Tom Rawlings. So he's starting to feel the pressure a little bit at the wheel of the number 26 Paddock Motorsport McLaren GT4. Sam Neary's progress continues almost effortlessly, doesn't it? 33 seconds is the advantage that he has built up over the course of the 10 laps that have been completed already. Towards us now comes that squabble for second, third, fourth and fifth in Group GTH. Mike Price still trying to stay ahead of the similar McLaren that sits behind, the McLaren 570S GT4 of Josh Jackson, who raises the dust heading round through what was the bomb hole. James Simons side by side in his Group GTC Lamborghini with what was Richard Marsh. Now, I thought I saw the Lamborghini slow there all of a sudden. Richard Marsh has gone through and ahead of that Lamborghini. But for a split second, I thought I saw the Lamborghini just ease off the pace there. Now here comes Simon Orange, back under attack from Tom Rawlings, who might just go back through here. Absolutely, so that is not for position. Tom Rawlings needs to be careful. That's the lead of Group GTH. He's tried it and he's going to spin, and that will drop him out of the lead of the group when he didn't need to overtake that car. It was not for group position. So it is going to allow the number 90 car of Mike Price now surely to pick up the lead of Group GTH. Simon Orange is now very much on his own, but for one of the sister cars in Team Orange, that being Josh Jackson, he now knows that if he can get past that green McLaren in the hands of Mike Price, that would put him up into the lead of the group. They've all been passed by the race leader, Sam Neary, who is only, what, a couple of laps, maybe 3 laps away now from taking the checkered flag and what potentially could be overall win number 7 for Team ABBA Racing. There goes Mike Price. Now, he, as a result of that spin, the number 90 car, has picked up the lead of Group GTH, but right behind him is another Group GTH car, that being Josh Jackson. The Mercedes, guess what, Morgan Tilbrook runs in Group GTH, and then the Porsche is another Group GTH car, so it's 4 cars now fighting for the lead of Group GTH. This category that was introduced a couple of seasons ago has proved hugely popular in the GT Cup, and, well, it is one of those with so many cars capable of winning. There has not really been a single car that has overly dominated so far this season in Group GTH. We've seen the number 1 McLaren win on a couple of occasions. We've seen the number 82 Aston Martin of James Guess, who's feeling a little bit under the weather, win on a couple of occasions. We've seen the likes of Matthew Lewis and Ollie Brown, who aren't out this weekend in the Deranged Motorsport car, win on one occasion. We saw the likes of the Paddock Motorsport car of Tom Rawlings and Mo Ritson, who we've just seen that spin for Tom Rawlings win yesterday. So no one single car has dominated, and we could potentially see the number 90 car head onto the top step of the podium. That would be a great result for the Balfe Motorsport crew. But for Mike Price, there's hard work ahead still, because there is going to be no let-up in the pressure whatsoever. He'll be trying to focus out of the windscreen, ignoring what's going on behind. Now, has the door been left open? Josh Jackson thought that there might be an opportunity, but then made sure that he covered off any move from Morgan Tilbrook that would be coming up from behind. The difficulty for Mike Price is that, are Team Orange playing the team game here? I have a feeling they are, you know. I think they have asked the number 67 car to back off a little bit, Simon Orange to back off a little bit. That will bottle up Mike Price, who leads Group GTH, and potentially allow the sister car from Team Orange, the number 1 McLaren, to try and pick its way through and into the lead of the group. But for Josh Jackson, he needs to be careful here, because almost Morgan Tilbrook got the overlap there at the wheel of the Mercedes and almost was able to sneak its way through. But I think Team Orange are playing a very canny game here, potentially. Let's just have a quick look onto the brakes, up towards Oggies they'll go. There was almost contact there, wasn't there? So hard when late was Josh Jackson on the brakes, but yeah, just a little bit of daylight between the rear bumper of the number 90 and the front bumper of the number 1 McLaren. Again, going to show that the equalisation of these cars in terms of what the Butte Motorsport crew do is working, because McLarens, Mercedes and Porsches, entirely different cars, all absolutely matched for pace. Now, has Carl Caver's got a run on Morgan Tilbrook, heading towards Brundle and Nelson? No, not quite. Porsche still sits behind Mercedes. And yeah, I don't think there's any doubt here that Simon Orange is just slowing up, not obviously, but I don't think he is driving as quick as he could at this stage, and is maybe just seeing whether he can bottle up the pack behind and give an opportunity to his teammate at the wheel of that number 1 car to sneak through and pick up the lead of the group, because the Ginetta ahead of this little quartet sits in Group GTA, and the quartet behind are all Group GTH cars. But our race leader, which is Sam Neary, is now onto the final lap of the race. Set the fastest lap quite some time ago. 1 minute 50.261 is the fastest lap that we've had. He's eased his pace a little bit, but I think this battle for GTH is going to rage and probably won't get decided either until the bottom of the Bentley straight on the final lap, or perhaps even the exit of the final corner, which could be the last opportunity for Josh Jackson to try something. The difficulty for Josh is, at the wheel of the number 1 McLaren, he's in that dichotomy, isn't he? As is Morgan Tilbrook. If you attack and it doesn't work, then straight away you're in danger of losing places. So through Palmer, they will thread their way. Mike Price, if anything, just getting away a little bit now at the wheel of the Group GTH leading McLaren, the number 90 car. Has Josh Jackson got anything else he can throw at it? Morgan Tilbrook almost tried to attack, but had to defend at the same time, because Carl Cavers is not that far behind at the wheel of the Porsche. That's what I'm talking about. You attack and then instantly you've got to defend. But for the final time, down towards the bottom of the Bentley straight comes Sam Neary. A fairly untroubled race again for him. A fairly lonely race in that respect, but for others, of course, it's been a rather busy race, not least of which the intense battle that we've seen for Group GTH between these 4 cars. It was for 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th in the group, but following the spin for Tom Rawlings, of course, that was them for the top 4 places in the group. But for Sam Neary and Team ABBA, it looks as though it's going to be a clean sweep so far this weekend. 3 out of 3 for Team ABBA Racing, who originally were not going to do the full season, but they did so well in the early stages, they came in for the full year, and well, so far this weekend, it's the hat-trick, a clean sweep for them. Well done to Sam Neary on yet another overall win and a win in Group GT3. Wait for the arrival of the rest of the cars over the start-finish line. Here they come now. Are we going to have a shuffle in the order in Group GTH? Up towards the final corner, Morgan Tilbrook is too far behind. It does look as though the number 90 car of Mike Price is going to pick up a win in Group GTH, and I think that's the first win for Mike Price and the Balfe Motorsport crew, Group GTH, so far this season. And it wasn't an easy one either, was it, as they crossed the finish line in 13th position. So that was a great race that we've had throughout the course of the previous 25 minutes. So Sam Neary claims the win. Lucky Kira will finish in 2nd place. This car here, Graham Tilley, the number 4 Nissan, which we didn't see a lot of, such was the intense battle that we were focusing on further back. Graham Tilley quite lonely in the end, finishing in 3rd position at the wheel of the Nissan. That seems to be his average finishing position for the season as well. Lots of 3rds in the race overall for Graham Tilley, or 3rds in group, but fantastic fight for Mike Price. He looks chuffed with that, doesn't he? And rightly so you should, Mike, because there was at no point any let-up at all in the pressure that was being applied by, well, whether it be Josh Jackson behind, whether it be the likes of Morgan Tilbrook or Carl Cavers, and it was clean racing as well, very clean racing between them all. So congratulations to all of those. Congratulations to Lucky Kier as well, who finishes on the podium yet again at the wheel of his Simon Green Motorsport prepared Lamborghini. But what a way to start our 2nd day of racing here at Snetterton with the GT Cup Championship. A fairly clean race. That little bit of contact between John Seal and Paul Bailey, unfortunately putting both of those cars out. But for Sam Neary, Team ABBA, and of course not sharing the car on this occasion, but they will be doing for the pit stop race later on, his father Richard Neary. It is a very, very enjoyable race for them and a very successful weekend. I think we can guide you very shortly through the results, just while the cars work their way around the circle and trickle their way back into the pit lane. It's a warm day here at Snetterton, slightly overcast, whereas yesterday was a beautiful sunny day all day. And then we can look forward to our second race later on. So I think what we could do is we could probably throw down to Michelle in the pit lane for what was a fantastic first race of the day for the GT Cup Championship, Michelle.
Yeah, I'm here in the pit lane. We're just waiting for all the cars now to come back in. Unfortunately, there is one car that's already here in the pit lane. What
no problem,
a
mate.
shame. That Brabham and the contact with John Seale's car meant that it had to come in early. I know that Paul Bailey is not a happy man right now. We're not going to actually talk to him. They're working on the car. I don't know if you can see it just behind me. It's sort of behind the marshals and other people here. They're working on the car, desperately going to try and get it ready for the second race, but we really don't know what's going to happen. Let's keep everything crossed that that car can get out for the pit stop race, which is race number 2 that we've got coming up for you. What we'll do, first of all, before we say goodbye, is just get the full results, because I know, Mark, you've got those ready for us now, haven't you?
Absolutely, Michelle. Yeah, so thanks for that. We'll pick up on any other stories from the pit lane and bring them to you as we look forward to the pit stop race later on. But confirmation of the results then for our sprint race today. Sam Neary claims the win and the win in GT3 as well, with Lucky Keir in second place and Graham Tilley in third. Fourth in the end was Warren Gilbert. He picks up the win in Group GTC, which keeps the Top Caps Racing Lamborghini at the top of the championship table. And finishing in fifth place following his spin. Great recovery from being in the mid-20s to fifth in the end for John Dillon and completing the top 6. Was Mike Brown. In seventh place, that's where we see the number 96 car of Chris Kemp, and the winning Group GTB went to the car that finished in 8th place, which was Nick Phelps, ahead of James Hillary in 9th place and Richard Marsh, who completed the top 10. Just outside of the top 10, it was James Simons, who finished in 11th place. 12th went the way of the number 67 car, which is going to be Simon Orange, who claimed top honours in Group GTA. And in 13th place, that was the winner in Group GTH, Mike Price, with that fantastic fight that he was having, which meant that he finished 13th. Josh Jackson was 14th, Morgan Tilbrook was 15th, and Carl Cavers was in 16th position. 17th place was James Townsend, who finished in 17th place. Feeling under the weather with a stomach upset is James Guess, who was in 18th place, but at least he was able to drive the car and see the checkered flag. 19th place was David Holloway. And Mark Hopton completed the top 20 for Greystone GT. In 21st position, that's where we see the number 23 car of Ian Campbell. Seb Melrose, who's taken over the number 10 for today, finished in 22nd. And then it was Tom Rawlings from Craig Wilkins, Rob Myers, Warren Gilbert, Charlotte Gilbert, Chris Murphy finished in 27th position. Those problems for the 212 that we saw with the spin meant that Stephen Walton finished in 28th, ahead of what will be the number 17 car of Russ Lindsay that finished in 29th. And it was Alex Stevenson who brought his battered Century Motorsport Ginetta into the pit lane. All the rest of those cars on that screen were all very sadly retirements. Paul Bailey, John Seale, issues for the number 44 McLaren, and we saw problems also for the Radical, for the Marcus of Andy Roby, and Richard Chamberlain did not make the start following problems yesterday. So that gives you the results. I'll hand you back down into the pit lane for Michelle, because we've got another race, Michelle, later on today to look forward to.
We have indeed, Mark. Thanks for that. Thanks for giving us the rundown. Yeah, we're not done yet. That might be it for the sprint, but we've still got some endurance on the way. The pit stop race is coming up a bit later. It's due to get underway at 3 o'clock, so we'll try and get back on air for you live here around about 2:50. So hopefully you can join us for that one. In the meantime, there's all the social media that you can find us on. Just look up the GT Cup and you can see some fantastic pictures on there, some really good photography. In the meantime, from Norfolk, for now, it's goodbye. We'll see you later.